Hello, my name is Debbie Reynolds. They call me the Data Diva. Today I want to talk about data privacy and what I call compounded regulations. So, in the US, because we have such a patchwork of laws around data privacy, and there are a lot of gaps there, different states are doing things in different ways, and as a result of that, we have kind of a mishmash of laws, and it's hard sometimes, especially when people are looking up laws or they're trying to research things, especially in different jurisdictions, in terms of what applies to them and their company. I think the important thing to understand is that, every state is different, unfortunately. So at a state level, there's a situation where there isn't a lot of congruency in terms of how these state regulations get passed. Also, some of the state level laws, for example, as we see, in places where, for example, states may have, like all 50 states have data breach notification laws, and because they may not have passed like new data privacy regulation or new laws, they may have tacked on or updated data breach notification laws over the years to add in or sprinkle in things around cybersecurity or around data privacy. So they're kind of a mix of privacy and cybersecurity. We're also seeing a tendency for certain states to, instead of like repealing a law and replacing it completely, they're just adding additional laws on top of other laws. So it makes it a lot more difficult to do research for these particular states because people may not be aware of all the different parts of the laws that are currently in play. So a good example of this would be the New York Shield Act. So the New York Shield Act is an act about how you protect data of individuals who are in the state of New York. It doesn't have a lot of exceptions, but it's hard to really read and understand what's happening with that law unless you look at their data breach laws and the updates that they had done, for example, in 2005, 2013, and 2019, in addition to the SHIELD Act. Another really big example, and this is probably going to come into play very soon, is that California has the CCPA and the CPRA, which will go into full effect in January 1st of 2023. So the CCPA is kind of like the foundational groundwork of the California Privacy Act, Consumer Privacy Act, and then the CPRA amends certain parts of the CCPA, but it sort of lays on top of CCPA and adds more stuff. So those two things together help. I don't know, it's kind of like a layer cake of laws in the state of California. Actually, I think California probably has the most, in addition to being the most comprehensive state on data privacy, is also the most complex in my view because it has all these different layers of law. So in addition to CCPA and CPRA, before those things were passed, California had many other little laws that sort of hook into those big laws. So I think for people that are looking to research on a U.S. state level, it can get extremely complicated, and sort of knowing the fact that, these new laws don't necessarily, a lot of times, don't replace. So we don't, unlike the EU where the GDPR, once the GDPR came into effect in Europe, they repealed and replaced the data directive. So then in wholesale, GDPR is kind of the new thing. You only have to look at that one law to see kind of what the law of the land is. In the US, it's just not that way. So I think things are just going to get a lot more complicated. We're seeing more states trying to pass more laws. They're trying to hook them into old laws. They're trying to mix them in. In the U.S., a lot of times cybersecurity and privacy can sometimes be commingled or even mistaken for one another. So I think anyone looking to untangle what's happening in the U.S. on a state level it's kind of complicated. That's it. Thank you.